Okay, it's officially time, so let's switch us over. Welcome to the Drupal Steward Q&A, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate having all of you here with us today to talk about this sort of innovative product being offered by the Drupal Association. It's kind of the first time we've ever made a product offering, and it's specifically designed to help any Drupal site owner out there or anybody who works with a lot of Drupal site owner clients have some peace of mind around security updates, particularly highly critical security updates. Before we get started, I do want to remind folks this is a short session. This is one of the 20-minute ones, and it is a Q&A, so we really want to encourage you to focus on coming up with whatever questions you might have in the Q&A tab, although we do have some stuff we can present if folks are still feeling quiet. But with that, let's jump over to introductions. So I'm Tim Lennon, or Hestenet on Drupal.org. I'm the CTO of the Drupal Association, so I'm involved in managing the engineering team that helps the community, or that helps build the tools that let the community build Drupal. So that's what we like to say about ourselves and what we do. And Drupal Steward is another one of those tools that hopefully lets you focus more on your own projects and a little bit less more about middle of the night security anxiety. So Michael, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Michael Hess. I am on the security working group and kind of responsible for the security team liaison side of this product that the DA and the security team are offering. And excited to be here at 10 a.m. local time, 10:30. Jason?
Hey, everyone. Jason Van Dorn. I work with the Drupal Association. I'm an account executive over here. I'm also your main point of contact for this product, this program. So we're excited to hear your questions about Drupal Steward.
Awesome. Sounds good. So again, don't be shy about that Q&A tab. Don't be shy about the chat. We've kicked things off asking you about your breakfast. But the other thing I'd like to hear is maybe just in the chat what some of your experiences have been in the past as we speak about, any of the previous highly critical Drupal vulnerabilities, those that have media names that perhaps we choose not to repeat. But it's been an issue, and I'm curious how that's affected yourselves or your teams and things like that as we go. To kick things off, I'm going to attempt to play a video which you may have already seen. I am not 100% sure if the audio here is going to work, so let's see. We're going to hit go here and hope for the best. Do security releases keep you up at night? Is your whole team on call on patch days? If you don't beat the bad actors to the punch, do you worry you may already be compromised? There's a better way with Drupal Steward. Drupal Steward is a web application firewall that protects your site from highly critical, mass exploitable vulnerabilities until you have time to patch. Update on your own time. And sleep soundly again. Sign up today at drupal.org/steward. All right.
I love that narrator.
Oh, it's so hard listening to your own voice, isn't it? It's a heck of a thing. So, Drupal Steward is an interesting program. It's really a new experiment for us in the security team to collaborate in this way. And there's a lot of elements to it. So we're kind of hoping to get the word out. That message you just saw is hopefully a kind of bite-sized chunk to pique the curiosity of site owners out there. I know many of you here are deep in the Drupal community and you understand the security release cycle and the importance of keeping up to date. But we're trying to reach those folks who maybe their Drupal site is only part of their business portfolio and they don't necessarily totally understand the whole sort of scope of things. It looks like we do have a question from Fran. So how does, I'll start there and then we'll jump into other questions or into other slides, depending on what appears in the chat. So Fran asks, how does Drupal Steward integrate with existing CDNs, or can Drupal Steward integrate with existing CDNs? So I can jump in and tackle this one. Michael, you might also speak to it a little bit, but shall I go ahead?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. So Drupal Steward can absolutely work with CDNs like Fastly, like Cloudflare, like other tools that people might already be using for their Drupal site. But the way it works, it's in and of itself is also very similar to a CDN. So it's a sort of edge network application. It's globally distributed. We're working with a partner who actually operates a sort of modular edge application architecture. And we're using it to put this web application firewall at the edge of your network. And so you can use it together with a CDN service. To do that requires routing the DNS for your Drupal site's domain, either first through Steward and then through your CDN, or first through your CDN and then through Steward. There's a couple different options. We've done it for a few customers so far, so it's still absolutely possible. Doing it with one of our agency partners who happens to use Cloudflare for some of their, for their own site, as well as for some customer sites, took us about 30 minutes to work with them on getting that together. So even with an existing CDN situation, it's not necessarily too difficult. Let's see. Clara asks, how will Drupal Steward work for highly integrated Drupal sites with IAM user management, lots of integrated apps and technologies? Just so that I'm not the only one speaking, I think I'll let Michael talk about how this is sort of built on mod security and therefore should be okay in this scenario. But go ahead.
Sure. So what Drupal Steward does is it inspects every inbound request to your site, and it compares that to a list of known problematic requests. So for example, if there's a SQL injection vulnerability that takes place when you hit like admin views, we would look for SQL being sent to that admin views endpoint, and we would block it before it ever hit your site. So whatever's happening internally to your site, no matter what modules you have enabled, Drupal Steward's kind of a layer above your site out there. You know, I've got a deck of slides that basically talks about defense in depth. And you've got, you know, if you think about your traditional castle, you've got what happens inside your castle, then you've got your walls around your castle, then you might have the moat. And then you've got the ability to pour like the hot lava on people who might be in your castle. Drupal Steward is one of those outer layers of protection. Internal to your Drupal site, you'll have other mechanisms of protection, strong passwords, whatever it may be. Drupal Steward kind of sits a layer out and watches what's coming into your site and says, I don't trust that, and we'll block it.
Yep, exactly. I'll add to that because that it works basically on a targeted rule model. It's sort of focused very, very narrowly on the exploitable vulnerabilities that might be affected, right? So, you know, a PSA might go out that there's a highly critical vulnerability that we have to deal with. And we are working closely with the security team, closely with other sort of vendors in the program to carefully craft a rule that blocks that particular exploit without blocking legitimate traffic or legitimate functionality to the site, right? So if there's something that like exploits some kind of post or get request to the site, right, we're not going to like shut off all get requests. We're going to look very specifically for how that's constructed and try and avoid false positives. And we even work with some of our platform level hosting partners to ensure that they are helping us sort of test in a monitor only mode and watch out for possible false positives so we could refine the rules. And that should help as well, Claire.
Before we get to the question from Anonymous on security posture, do you want to show the slides of kind of the internal process?
Yeah, let's jump through a little bit because I think that is a great question to follow along onto some of this. So I'll step through these quickly, but this might be you. If you are one of the members of the Drupal Slack, you probably recognize this. There's sort of a on security update Wednesdays. You know, one of the Wednesdays every month is the contributed module window. The other is the core window. and in theory, there could be others if necessary. These little threads get started with some lighthearted gifs about folks waiting for a patch to drop, right? So if that's you or if that's your team, this is the sort of product that we hope will help you out, because we know that, when you're looking at this, you're hoping to see an answer that's, hey, no releases today, or only moderates or minor releases, and you're really hoping that you're not going to see oh gosh, there's a highly critical, you should update within an hour kind of thing, and scramble all fighters to get your update together. So within that context of knowing, like, hey, this is something that occupies people's time and disrupt their roadmaps, what is Drupal Steward, right? So we've just said it's peace of mind for site owners. It's a firewall protecting your site from those vulnerabilities, so that you can plan a sort of normal work week. More specifically, how it works, and again, this is sort of in collaboration with the security team, is that step one, the security team identifies as a vulnerability and says, hey, this is going to be an issue. It's going to be a highly critical or a mass exploitable one. These are rare. We have not had these very often in Drupal's history, but that doesn't mean we don't want to be prepared for them and make them as easy to manage as we can. There have been some examples in the past. These are ones from 2018 that you could go back and look at the essays for if you wanted. If Drupal Steward had existed in 2018, those two examples are ones that could have been covered by the program. So the next step, the security team is like, hey, can a WAF even mitigate that rule? Will it be possible? Because there may be some specific kinds of vulnerabilities that we won't be able to solve in this way. Hopefully, though, we determine that we can protect sites using this method. And then the PSA gets released. And the PSA will always say, hey, Drupal Steward can cover this issue or it cannot. So in the cases where it can cover it, that's when you get to know, hey, I get to kind of hang out and plan a normal work week, choose to, if I'm in Europe or India or Australia and the window is in a weird time zone for my team, I can choose to say, hey, we're going to do it the following day because we know our site will be protected, or we're going to do it within a couple of days because, for whatever emergency reason, it came out on a holiday or something awful like that, right? So that's kind of the reasoning behind how this process works and the sort of notification method that we have to get people together for it. Michael, let's pause and let's go to that security posture question, and then I'll answer the next one about signing up, or have Jason talk about that.
So security posture, it's an interesting question. Drupal is unique in that as far as I'm aware, we are the only open source security team that covers the core product and any module that a maintainer wants to opt into our process. Which is a massive amount of surface to cover. What Drupal Steward does is, every open source security, team releases updates. One of the things that Drupal Steward lets folks do is sleep at night effectively. One of the biggest things that creates headaches on teams is this, unplanned interruptive work where you stop everything you're doing to apply a security update, and it's not planned for. And, whatever forward progress you were making on whatever your active sprints were, you have to stop and go over here and do this. And, it's not necessarily complicated, but it takes resources. It takes QA time. You may have to put, outages in place. Drupal Steward allows us around that. So, it increases the posture for Drupal on in that space, and that you don't have to have somebody sitting around all day.
And at the same time, it doesn't change anything about the way the current security process works, right? Anybody who, for whatever reason, chooses not to be involved in the program still gets the patches when they're released, still gets all the essays and the PSAs, like everything that we've always done through Drupal's history up to now, and all the security team collaboration is all still happening. This is just a layer on top of that gives you that, again, that sort of scheduling ability that is almost a unicorn when it comes to security issues. The idea that you could actually schedule a security response. And again, it won't apply in all cases, but it'll apply in some of the most important ones. And we think that's worth that level of peace of mind. And we hope that overall it sort of improves even further Drupal's reputation for security. We already have one of the best security postures in the industry, one of the best security teams in open source. Absolutely. So I think it's just a powerful new tool. And among other things, by the way, that's we've made this as affordable as possible, but there are some revenues from the program, and those revenues are split between DA programs and made available to the security team for what they need. So it helps even improve the posture in that sense, in terms of funding support for key security work, or even funding effort towards the Drupal Association's involvement in the Automatic Updates Initiative, which is another initiative that will help improve Drupal security posture. So all of these things work together, right? We don't want them to, none of them are sort of competing. None of them are putting new gates in front of the code or of the security releases. They're just trying to add additional layers of peace of mind, as we've said several times. So Jürgen asks, what's involved in signing up for Drupal Steward? And for this, Jason, I think I'll turn it to you, and I will advance our slides here to talk about pricing and things like that, and our next one with the specific slides. But why don't you talk about this part first, Jason?
Yeah, I recommend anyone who's interested in learning more. There's a wealth amount of information on drupal.org/steward. Along with those resources, with Drupal Steward, you'll find a pricing estimator. So how the pricing works for this is you only get charged for the domains you register. So creating an account and then testing one domain, you can see kind of how many requests that page is getting. You can determine how many the rough cost of each domain that you register. So I'd recommend playing around with drupal.org/steward and that pricing calculator to see what that bandwidth is going to be for each domain that you register.
Yeah, and something I would add on the pricing side, again, that calculator is there to give you an ability. Well, in fact, here it is. The calculator is there to give you an ability to sort of guesstimate what it's going to cost. And it is designed to be about as affordable as we can make it without making it a negative cost to the association. It's really, really inexpensive for sort of what's included on a per domain basis. Jürgen, your question involves a lot, like hundreds of really, really small sites. That might skew things a little bit tricky. Like there's a bunch of requests are included. So if they're low traffic sites, they're not likely to go above the per domain cost. And so if your organization was like a premium partner, it'd be like $10 per site each. But depending on how small they are, like if they're in the very, very small category, I can see how that might be a little bit more than you might be looking for. There could be other options. Again, it depends on the scope of the sites. You might want to reach out individually. We'll have some contact information, but Jason, he'll put his email in the chat, is a good contact. But again, the pricing calculator is per domain. There's a sort of base price that includes 100,000 monthly requests. And then there's a rate for additional requests. And for a site with like less than 1 million monthly requests, the pricing is less than like $20 a month is how it works out. It tends to be quite affordable. So even for some very large sites, it's not that expensive. And that's been a big focus for us. In terms of the actual process of getting set up, I think that was part of the question as well. So when you go to drupal.org/steward, you'll see a link to register or a link to log in. Again, you can register an account without giving billing information, without paying a dime. You can just get an account set up and take a look at what the dashboard provides and what it looks like. It's only when you choose to add a domain to the system that there's any billing. And it's all prorated month to month with automatically generated invoices for your finance department. So you don't have to request any special documentation when you're filling out those reports. We worked with a lot of sort of enterprise type customers and tried to make sure they have everything they need to sort of serve themselves so that there's low overhead and low support process to kind of make that stuff work. So I hope that at least starts to answer the question, but certainly we'll be happy to talk to you further. We are low on time, so is there any final Q&A before we release you all to the next set here? Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Heather, for dropping in that email address. Again, if you work, well, let me talk a little bit about partners here. So just before we leave, I want to thank the partners who've made this possible so far. So Acquia and Pantheon are both founding partners of the program. It was their original support and the funding provided that support that allowed us to make a community tier where to build out an actual application that any individual site owner could sign up for. But if you are already hosted with one of those partners, you're already covered. They cover their entire sphere of customers, their entire customer base with the Drupal Steward program. And partners at the large hosting level, if there are any more of you out there who are interested in that, certainly let me know. And then we have a couple premium supporting partners of the Steward program specifically. These are folks who've opted in so that they can essentially purchase on behalf of their clients and make it part of their all-inclusive package. So we want to thank 1x Internet and Salsa Digital as some of the folks who have done that as well. And since we're out of time, real quick, a final reminder, contribution is the most important part of Drupal and of DrupalCon. So please do join the contributions throughout the week at drupalcontributions.opensocial.site. And thank you so much for all your time and your questions. I hope you'll reach out to us. We're going to be around all the time. And Thursday this week in the Drupal Association booth, we'll be taking more Q&A about Drupal Steward if you have more questions. So we'll post that in the event chat when it's going on, so you can join us there as well. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.